Hey everyone, welcome back to the Focus Drift channel. Today I'm going to walk you through the steps how I did set up my Nextcloud with secure local and remote access on my NAS server. Basically, NAS TrueNAS has a lot of apps. So one of them is a Nextcloud app, which is a Docker containerized app, which I downloaded and configured on to run it on my TrueNAS. That's not a big deal. But like, how did I set it up for the access, like internal as well as an external? That's the curious part I want to share with you guys. Basically, I used Cloudflare, NGINX reverse proxy, AdGuard, and some NAT rules at a high level. So let's go about that. I'll start with the TrueNAS downloading, and I mean, I already downloaded. I'll just show you the configuration, what I did, and I'll walk you through. And also at the end, I will talk about the possible issues you might encounter, which I also encountered. Some of the issues I kind of hit walls, but I was able to resolve them successfully. Right now, I'm able to access my Nextcloud from internet. So let's go step by step, starting with Nextcloud setup on TrueNAS. And let me take you to the screen. It's pretty straightforward. You log into your TrueNAS, and just to be mind, I already installed stuff. I don't want to do redo again, but I'll just go through the steps. So I'm already on apps. Before you begin, if you read up the Nextcloud, it requires typically three sets of data folder. One for the Nextcloud app itself, like app keeps its metadata, app installed, and other stuff like a server and other stuff. And there's a Postgres database. Default comes with the container. This is a containerized app in the TrueNAS app catalog. And also, then you need to have a data folder, like user data, like all the files and photos and videos you dump through the Nextcloud. You need to have a storage location for that. So before you start installing the app itself, uh, this is like you need to create a appropriate data sets. So this is what I did. I At a high level, I think earlier I mentioned in my earlier videos of TrueNAS setup, I structured data sets like pools. Like one pool is for my 3.5 hard drive, which is the main the backup drives, SDDs, and there is a 1 TB NVMe SSD, which I intend to keep it for the things like this app, which supposedly work faster compared to 3.5 SDD. So I have two pools, one for the app and app metadata and app databases, and one for the actual data, user data. So if you look at the data sets, I have two pools, app pool and core 14 TB. That's my main dumping ground for all the user data. So in the app pool, I have created a folder. It's not mandatory, you need to create just to be organized way to manage your data. So you like maybe in future you add more applications, you can create appropriate file structure. So for the Nextcloud app, I have this app storage and PostgreSDB. There are two data sets on the SSD. And if you go to for the main dumping ground where I have the application folder, under that I have multiple applications, which basically I could have created some on the 1 TB SSD, the application folders, but like those are tiny mini applications, and it doesn't matter. You put it on the NVMe compared to SDD. So for the Nextcloud, right now we are focused on the Nextcloud. So go to the Nextcloud and you create a user data folder. And just on the data folder, you also need to create an appropriate permission set. So if you look at this, right, I have this permission like owner and group are www-data. That's a standard Nextcloud user read, write, execute, read, write, execute. You can on the fly, you can create through the Nextcloud setup, but I prefer to create it in advance so I can use it properly. This is how the permission sets looks like. it's already set for user and group, and others don't have permissions. And when you set it up, always add it up like a recursively, so all like from the bottom of folder everything get applied the permissions. And same for the app pool data. Here app storage is www.data, and PostgreSDB is uh, it is just a Docker this thing. I think it gives net data by default, so I didn't change anything on this. So yeah, this is the data set creation for your Nextcloud. So you goes to the app, and typically you go discover apps and just say Nextcloud. See, you see this stable release is v2010. It says already installed. So if I click on this, it should go to my current app. No, it says install another instance. Okay, you can have a multiple instance. This is new to me. I didn't try this before. But anyhow, let's go back to the Nextcloud app, and you select this, and you see this the whole details. Once get it installed and running, see it is update available. I have an older version, one version below, I think. And all the I'll go through these things in a bit. If you look at high level, there's notes, application metadata, and run as context, other stuff. I didn't touch any of this. This is like very first time install. You go here, edit, and there are multiple sections: application name, Nextcloud configuration, network configuration, storage configuration, labels configuration, all those things. So application is nothing but just an application name. Nextcloud configuration is basically your admin privileges, and there are API packages which you can use it, but there are 4 available, I think, out of the box. I used all of them. This one FFmpeg is basically to do I think it iconizes your images and videos so that it is easy for browsing and all on a catalog, your data catalog. And SMB client, you are aware of, it's for the share. You can do a folder share to the SMB protocol. SMB client is used, that package. And OCR my PDF, this is for the OCR. Like I haven't literally used any OCR features yet in the Nextcloud. And LibreOffice, that's for like open office stuff. So those are the thing. And if you go to the network configuration, this is a bit important here. I put a default port as 8099. It comes with I forgot. I need to check. It comes with a. I changed this port basically. This is where your mapping happens on the NGINX reverse proxy. NGINX reverse proxy. Those things you set up. And storage configuration. Yeah, the next one is basically there are 3 sections. One for the Nextcloud app data storage, and Nextcloud user data storage, and the PostgreSDB data storage. So since we already created all those data sets, you just map them. You use the host path. It's already exists. There are 2 options when you do a drop down, IX volume, and this will dynamically create. This I already have created, so I chose this one, and then you go. I didn't enable ACLs for any of those things. You can have an access controls added to that level. I didn't do that level of access controls. But by default, whatever the permission set we added, it should be okay with the current setup. So this is the storage. Then label configuration, I didn't do anything. And resource configuration based on your CPU and what's your available memory, you can decide. I think it minimum required is 1024. That's like 1 GB memory or 2 GB memory. I need to check. You guys cross check the Nextcloud minimal requirement. I put up like 4 CPU and 8 GB, 8 gig RAM. So that's what it about. Yeah, once you save it, it will again redeploy and start. And if you go here, See, I already set up a domain, cloud for like that. My domain is um, it's a subdomain basically. Focusdifts.com is the domain name, but like this is for the cloud. So I took it as like a cloud.focusdifts.com. So this is where you can get in and log in just to test the basic stuff once you install. So, very first time when you install, you get the web UI, but you'll not be able to log in. That's basic default security in the Nextcloud app itself. For that, you need to get onto the shell and you have to modify this config.php. If you see this, right, there's in the GitHub of the Nextcloud, there's a details mentioned. Basically, you need to do a setting trusted domains. This is important. That's where you're getting blocked. Your logins are not credentialized. So you put, if you have not created the domain yet, you put your IP address where the server is running, the TrueNAS server IP address, and probably next localhost. Localhost probably is not considered because it's in a container. So your IP address should be enough. Trusted proxies, I didn't do any setup on that. So let's see how you can go there. So you basically go to the system and shell, and you know where your Nextcloud is installed. So you go to uh, app pool where that's NVMe SSD. Then I have the Nextcloud app. If you do ls, then app storage, ls. Yeah, there's a config folder itself. Sorry, my bad. You go there, then ls. Sorry. Yeah. So this is the config file for the Nextcloud. That's the important controls. So if you look at this, right, apps paths, I didn't touch any of those, and it is using internally memcached. Um, you can enable Redis also. I don't know whether, yeah, in the config it says Redis. I don't know what exactly it is using. I didn't dig in as as long as it started working fine for me with a good performance. I think very end tail end. Yeah, this is a trusted domain I added. If you see that this is my IP, this in the video, this is the IP and then my domain and other stuff. And a couple of other things also I ended up adding. That is basically overwrite host. Where is that? Yeah, this is right. Override CLI URL, override host, override protocol. Basically, I was using a domain and it automatically redirects to this domain. That's what. But like when I do this in my local Wi-Fi, it is getting redirected. This is basically if you're using NGINX reverse proxy. That just keep it in mind. Otherwise, don't touch this. If you're not bothered about exposing your Nextcloud outside your home network, then don't bother. But you still need to do the trusted domain. That is a key point. I'll go to the NGINX stuff in a bit. So this is what minimal you require. And once you do that, you do Control X and save. Since it's a nano editor, so that's a Control X, and it will ask you save or no, and that's how you come out. I didn't make any changes, so I didn't bother to ask. This is about Nextcloud basic installation and setup. Next, we'll go with the NGINX proxy manager. This one, it's very similar edit configuration, but unfortunately for you to see that, I don't have the inbuilt container app from the catalog. What happened is I initially installed the container app, and the same night they released a new update. I updated it and it broke the entire thing because there was a bug. I forgot what exact bug was it. If I remember, I'll put it in my comment section. I think I took a note on that. What was the bug? But what I did was there's no option to roll back in the apps section in this catalog. So I ended up creating my custom container image with a Docker file. You don't have to create, you just provide the Docker file, it will pull and build it. So how you can do is basically if you go discover apps and here, right, install YML. That's where you put up your Docker YML. Like you do that and you cut and paste and give a name to that, and that's it. It will pull the appropriate. Just make sure Docker file is working. It's usually simple. You can even look up on the web or Nextcloud GitHub. There might be container files available, Docker files available, which you can use it here. Just change the ports and IPs. So if you coming back to here, right? Like if I select NGINX, sorry, Nextcloud. I was saying Nextcloud. It's NGINX basically. NGINX. If you do edit, right, it is showing me my Docker file. And what is the important stuff in this is the ports, right? What ports you are exposing. 80 for the regular HTTP, 443 for the HTTPS, 81 for basically the web UI for the NGINX. So that's where you can go and modify, manage stuff. So if you go here, right, NGINX Proxy, I selected this. Since it is custom added, it is not giving me the web UI link. But if I directly go to that, oh, sorry, not NGINX, yeah. Here you can see I already logged it. Dashboard, it comes here by default, and then I created two proxies, basically one for my cloud.first focusdips.com, and the other is for the NAS. I mean, I have other purpose for that. I created that. If you look at this, right, if you go and edit, all you need to do is domain name. What is the domain name? And the forwarding address. See, you remember the Nextcloud is running on 8099. So any request coming here with this domain name, default port is 80, it will forward it to 8099 internally. So your HTTPS terminates at NGINX, and then it will internally manage it to communicate with the Nextcloud. That's how it works. And SSL, you support all those things, and in the advanced you can have custom parameters which you can populate. I don't think I added anything. I played around with that because of some issues I faced, and that's most of it. And before that, you also need to install the certificates. So the whole flow is, since we're talking about the reverse proxy, I'll talk about the whole flow. Actually, that is my next step. How do you set up the Cloudflare? Why did I use the Cloudflare? Cloudflare basically acts as a proxy on the internet for your domain. And basically, you register a domain called xyz.com, and somewhere it will publish to all the domain servers, the DNS servers. And what happens is when you set up a Cloudflare account with your domain name as an A record, I hope you all know what is A record. A record is a basic record for the DNS, where you give the domain name or subdomain name, then you give the actual static IP of your service or server. That will get resolved. And what Cloudflare will do is it will put a proxy behind above that. It's kind of a reverse proxy for that domain. So whenever someone hits your domain, the domain name is resolved to the reverse proxy or the proxy on the Cloudflare. Cloudflare will redirect it to your IP. So that is the first wall of defense. And Cloudflare out of box even for the free accounts, it will give certain security features like DDoS preventions and some what you call detail. I forgot. Like there are a lot of other security features you can avail by paying, going to a paid account. But default itself is enough for a home user. If you are not intend to put up a lot of sensitive stuff outside. But again, that's another topic. How do you manage the security and all? So yeah, that's what about it. And there are two ways to do this. So you see, right? Add SSL certificate, and there's a Let's Encrypt. That's a open source. I don't know what it is. I'm not sure it's open source or not, but it's a free certificate generator online. They'll give you a certificate based on your domain name. It has to have a domain name. You cannot do it on an IP address. So for that domain, it can use a certificate. So there are two ways to communicate with the Cloudflare with your NGINX. One is the first one is basically DNS challenge. They do challenge each other, then handshake happens, and probably that's where the certificate comes into the picture, and then it authenticates, and then the communication establishes. Another one is Cloudflare origin certificate. If you get it from Cloudflare and install it on your NGINX, it will use that to communicate to Cloudflare and authenticate. Cloudflare will authenticate, hey, yeah, this is you, and there's a API key setup and all. So if you that you do it with a custom. See, this is the name you can give, and choose file. You download the certificate file, the PEM, or the two, three types of files. Cloudflare. I'll show you there where you can do that. And this is what certificate key, certificate file, and if there's an intermediate. I didn't do intermediate. Initially I started with that Cloudflare origin certificate with a strict mode. Strict mode is unless the certificate handshake is successful, it won't allow you to do anything. But I had a hiccup when I was doing split DNS. So I'll come to that at the end. So this is what you have to do. And since we talked about Cloudflare, let's go to the Cloudflare. So as soon as you log in, basically, right? I clicked on. So okay, let me go here, and then this is my domain I registered and I already created. So you come here, basically, that's see the statistics. It's a free account. It is giving all the statistics on this. Why I'm saying is when you open ports to the internet, you have to make sure it is secure, because there are like millions of bots just sniffing around for open ports, open stuff, try to get in. Even though they don't attack your computer, they might sit on your computer for the right time to create an attack on some other important stuff. So that's how the things happen in the world, current internet landscape. At minimum, even though you don't feel anything, the bots are sitting idle on your IoT device or computer, whatever, right? If it's open, so you always make sure you secure good. So that's a point. And okay, coming back to this, you basically start with here, right? You go to records, you create a DNS record. It's nothing but like when you say add record, you have to make sure you use a type A. There are a lot of different types of records. You have to dive into see that, but like you have to use a record here. It's a basic domain record, and you give the exact domain name what you registered. You can do domain purchase in the Cloudflare itself or third party, or you can go for some free subdomain stuff. We can talk about those at the end, and you give your static IP address. So how do you find your static IP address? You all know in the inside network, it is your router is issuing DHCP that's giving the IP address for your machines. But the similar way, the ISP, your internet service provider, have issued a static IP. It could be a dynamic, but when I say static, it is usually like they keep it for like, it don't frequently change, but they do change it. So I'll talk about how to handle that change a little bit down the line. So give that like you just Google like what's my IP, and things like if you Google it, there are services for even Google giving, like I'll say what's my IP. See what's my IP.com IP address. So you click on it, it is showing this, right? This is what it detects and give it. So use that IP in the address, and this is what I already created, right? Focusdiff.com. This is my main domain. How do you create a subdomain? Subdomain is nothing but whatever you want to attach before the focusdiff.com. Like you saw earlier, like cloud.focusdiff.com is my Nextcloud's domain. So I added a cloud and you give the same study. It automatically detects that it's a subdomain and it will club them. And you have to make sure it has to be proxy status, proxy, because that's the main intention we are trying to do here. If you don't do this, what happens is it will just redirect directly. Your IP is exposed as a direct. The whoever is trying to hit your domain, they can make sure they can find out what is your IP. So that's an important part of, or the important feature of going with the Cloudflare. So you do that and then they save. So this is about it, right? And we talked about the Cloudflare certificates. the origin certificate, right? Earlier, like the two types. Let's Encrypt is basically third party. They generate certificate and give it to you, and use it to do the communication with that. And there are actually three or four types where you can even do a VPN tunnel communication with a Cloudflare, which is more complicated. I didn't do that. Or it's not VPN, but they call it tunnel, I think. I did the origin as well as let's encrypt. So I can go to the how do you generate the certificates, right? You go to the SSL, TLS, and uh, Edge certificate clients origin server. This is what you're going to click. Origin server, you can do clear. I removed it because I'm not using it. I'm just using Let's Encrypt. I started with that, but I had an issue with my local the split DNS communicating through NGINX was my browsers, like my own iPhone or iPhone app or the browser was not accepting the certificates because that is strictly only through the DNS. The origin, I mean, you are strictly bounded. Like I don't want any other way to access it. It has to come through the Cloudflare. Then you go with the origin server certificate. So typically you create that's more secure in the way, in my perspective. So you generate that and you have to make sure you copy it because the keys are not saved anywhere. That's one thing. And then if you come to your overview, right, then there's a on the right side you see API keys. See account ID, get your API token. So this is what, if you remember in the NGINX Proxy Manager. Yeah, one thing to be noted when we are using let's encrypt API key with DNS, what do you call, DNS challenge mode. Basically, we need something like API key from the Cloudflare, especially with the Cloudflare. Let me show you what it is. You see, you have xyz.com domain and you choose DNS challenge, and it will ask you to give the DNS provider. For us, it's a Cloudflare, and then as soon as you select this Cloudflare, this section comes up, opens up, where there's a Cloudflare API token. Basically, it will populate with some default dummy token values, 123 XYZ, whatever it is. You need to clean up and put the right token value. That's essential. That's like when you generate it, it is adhering to your account and it's your account credentials for the Let's Encrypt to use this SSL, generate this SSL. So yeah, that's about the API key. But this is where you can get the API token and the API keys. So that's about the Cloudflare minimal what you can do, right? You have to create the DNS record and DNS record for the subdomain if you're having one, and make sure the orange stuff is this orange is proxied. Gray, that's how they identify in blogs and all. Gray is not proxied, so make sure it is proxied. And yeah, that's about the how to set up the Cloudflare. And next is basically you need to have DDNS service. DDNS service is basically, if you remember, earlier I was talking about your ISP will give you an IP to your main router or like main connection, and they do keep changing sometimes. And the DDNS service will, what it does is it will update the latest IP changes to the DNS servers out in the wild. So that's important because you put up a static IP now, you don't have DDNS thing, things might change and your access might be broken. As simple as that. How the Cloudflare will know. So logged me out TrueNAS for security reasons. I have the DDNS updater. If you look at this, right, it's nothing. You just install it. You don't have to do any shit in this. Sorry for the bad word, but like it's so simple. What I meant is, you just install it and web UI. See, it already picked up my domain, and it says up to date. No changes is 27 days. Current IP is this. This is what we saw here, right? On what's my IP. Um, ah, Crap. And here it shows the current IP, whatever DDNS has updated here, and the previous IP was like 27 days back. This was my IP. If I didn't had this service, my Nextcloud access would have been broken because it is still hitting the DNS resolution, resolving into the old IP. It is still hitting the old IP. So that's the key point. That's one thing. I mean, you don't have to do it on like NAS server. You can put it on. It's another server sitting on your router, or if you have a firewall, they also give those services. You need to have DDNS service. Coming back to that, and then you see there's an add guard home. This is basically the last step. If you remember, my main goal is to have my Nextcloud accessible from outside as well as inside. And inside, because of this not firewall, the proxies on the internet through the Cloudflare, what happens is, even if you're not doing the next step, what happens is, like, from home, my phone wants to connect to Nextcloud. Nextcloud app on my phone want to sync photos to your own cloud on your own server, right? It has to go through all the way out on the internet, go to the Cloudflare, because the DNS get resolved into Cloudflare proxy. Anytime you say cloud.focusdisk.com, it will resolve to that proxy, and that proxy will redirect back to your server. So it's basically a big round trip, unnecessary. Since you are already inside the network, you shouldn't be doing that. So the simple trick was to have something called split DNS. The concept of split DNS is basically you set up a DNS server on your local network, because anytime DNS servers, how they work is basically it's kind of like a hierarchical. Hey, do you have the IP for this xyz.com? He'll look up in his data. No, I don't have it. So he'll push it to the higher ups in the chain, and he will look up, and if you don't have it, like, that's how it, like, initially by default it will go to your ISP's DNS server, and ISP don't have, then he'll push it to the another big service provider, and that's how things work. So in that chain, you're putting up your own DNS server locally, so you can resolve it to anything. That's a trick, right? So in that way, when I hit cloud.focusdisk.com, it will first come to my local DNS server. It will resolve it to my local IP, my local NGINX endpoint or whatever, right? So it need not go out all the way. And this is where this is why I used Let's Encrypt instead of Cloudflare origin certs, because if I'm using Cloudflare origin certs, my NGINX and my device handshake won't happen because it didn't come through the Cloudflare. My device will say it's unsecured and it won't proceed. Like that's a different security setup. So, but in this scenario, this make more sense. So I installed AdGuard Home. If you go here, right, the web UI is, I think, already logged in here. Um, if you go to the dashboard, it will show other details. All you don't. It's also very simple setup. There's nothing much to do. Go to filters, under DNS rewrites, right? You have to click on DNS rewrite. Basically, this is basically overwriting the, like, intercepting the DNS resolution and providing its own resolution. So anytime you hit a cloud.focusdisk.com, it is hitting my local NAS server. It's not even going out. That's the catch of this. I mean, good part of it. When I say catch, this is how you do it. Hope that's much clear now. So yeah, we did talk about all four stuffs we did, and what all things, right? You need to remember. Uh, Very first time after Nextcloud installation, you need to modify the config PHP to allow your local server access, the IPs, and then you do the NGINX reverse proxy setup. Oh yeah, in the NGINX, one thing important stuff I forgot was basically to highlight. I showed you. If you look at this, right, Cloudflare. Oh, sorry, I'll go to the hosts, proxy hosts, and edit. Yeah, this is important, right? From this resolution, like anytime cloud of focusdiff.com got resolved and it comes and hits here, it will, your HTTPS ends here, and then you are forwarding it to your local server. That's a reverse proxy thing. Um, that's my local server and the IP address, sorry, port, which is where it is running. And apart from that, also, I have little bit of trick I had to do. Basically, one final setup we need to do is, especially if you want your NGINX or Nextcloud on different port running, and even if it is 443 or default ports, you still need to have the router forwarding outside request coming in into your network need to be forwarded to appropriate IP and the port. So the you need to do this NAT forwarding setup, the NAT forward network address translations. It stands for basically. Most of the routers and almost every router will have probably an advanced setup section. You go there and you do custom, one for HTTP and one for HTTPS. HTTP default will be there. HTTPS you just say custom, and at least for me the TP-Link router I'm using was like that. And you just go there, you put up your IP and what port forwarding should be there for that IP. For example, for one, my Nextcloud is sitting on the NAS server. Even NGINX is on the same IP. Nextcloud is on the same IP. NAS is also on the same IP. So my 443 and 80 are forwarded to this particular IP address, and within that IP I have the services like NGINX to do another forward it to the appropriate Nextcloud service. That's a in depth of that flow. So you need to do that. That's one thing. Yeah, sorry. You also make sure, I think I explained or I talked about it in my previous NAS build and NAS setup, where you make your IPs for these devices within your network as a static or reserved addresses, because your router is usually a DHCP, that's a dynamically allocating IP addresses to all the devices in your network. But you want to reserve this particular device, always give this IP. It's kind of a static IP, you can say, so that your domain is hooked up and all your setup is like kind of fixed. It does not need to be changed every time you restart your router. It might give a different address if you don't do that. So make sure that's what need to be done. And I just opened up a page on like what is a NAT forwarding and all, because I don't want to share my router details on the screen. That's a thing. And other than that, yeah, I think we are all good here with all the setup. Hope you enjoyed the video so far. It's like a part three of my like a whole NAS build, starting like there are three series. I'll put the link on my previous videos in this video as well as in the old videos for this video. And please do subscribe and share. More to come. More tech stuff, photography stuff, and whatever I do, do it yourself stuff kind of things I would like to share. Thanks for watching. Adios.